of restoration, redemption, and hope. Listening to these incredible stories has caused me to laugh, to cry, and to see the Lord in a whole new way. Have you seen every episode? Let's take a look back. We started season 2 with Jamie, who struggled for over a decade with an addiction that may surprise you. She battled with an eating disorder. Jamie found a way to recover, and now, instead of hiding behind fear or shame, she lives her life to inspire and encourage others who are struggling with similar issues. Then we got to hear about Daniel. Daniel was living in active addiction, and it took him going to jail for the first time to wake up and realize that he needed help. He actually begged the judge to either leave him in jail or take him directly to a recovery home because he knew he couldn't do it on his own. He was struggling with whether or not he was truly loved, but his pastor showed him that God loved him regardless of the choices he had made. The same goes for you. Then we got to hear Eric's wild story. Eric stumbled out of the car he was living in and passed out in the grass in front of a liquor store. He just wanted his life to be over. Well, guess who found him there? It was his drug dealer who found him, got him to the hospital, and told him about a rehab facility that changed his life. Isn't that crazy? Next came Kelton. It was absolutely beautiful when Kelton said, "My life is changed forever. I am no longer hopeless. I'm no longer depressed. I'm no longer dealing with anxiety. I'm no longer insecure. I'm no longer filling myself with synthetic happiness. I am a new man." Kelton discovered what he called the cheat code to the game of life, and in his interview, he told us what it was. Then we heard from one of the most tattooed guys in the area, Joshua. Trauma, chaos, and violence silenced Joshua and caused him to believe that he had no value. After spending time in over 17 prisons, he gave his life to the Lord. He was blessed to be paroled to a program called True Purpose that we heard a lot about, where he began the process of finding his voice. It took Joshua 38 years to find hope, but now he brings that hope to everyone he meets. Next was Tara, who had such a relatable experience. Phrases like "you're not good enough" and "no one loves you" caused Tara to struggle with her identity. She would become whoever she needed to be in order to be accepted. This led her down a dangerous path. She felt completely empty, and no matter how hard she tried to run from her shame and her guilt, she couldn't. Her story brings so much hope. We met another woman right after that named Melinda. For many years, Melinda believed the lie that to survive as a woman in this world, you needed a man. Because of that, and a life filled with chaos, she lived with uncertainty, fear, and anxiety, trying to find stability through different people. She learned how to operate in the dysfunction. So when life was calm, Melinda became frightened and actually created more chaos. Does that sound familiar to you at all? Melinda had an encounter with the Lord that gave her a taste of true peace, and that true peace left her desiring more. Watch her story to discover for yourself where that true peace came from. Gage was at a low point in his life, walking around with bail money in his pocket just in case he got arrested, when a stranger asked him one simple question. That question changed Gage's life forever. Addictions had controlled every choice he made, but now he has been set free. Watch to hear what that stranger said and how it led Gage to a position where he now counsels others who are broken and brings them hope. The ripple effect for God's kingdom is incredible. Have you ever dealt with loneliness? Well, loneliness is what led Sabrina down a path of self-medication, addiction, self-harm, divorce, and cycles of abuse. She didn't know what love was, other than it always ended in heartbreak. We heard about how a friend invited her to a meeting that forever changed her life. She not only found forgiveness and healing, but she even stayed sober when her brother passed away. Then we met Anthony. A series of losses caused Anthony to start using drugs. He began selling drugs to support his habit, which just caused another series of losses. It was a downward spiral that led him deeper and deeper until one day he got caught. But being arrested not only saved Anthony's life, it changed his eternity. While in prison, he gave his life to the Lord and was baptized. It was such an amazing story. Next, we heard a shocking story from a wonderful couple. Jonathan had made some bad choices, but was in the process of recovering when his son was murdered. He went from shock to anger to grief that was so powerful he considered ending his own life. Jonathan started using drugs again to take his mind off of the pain, which then led him back to prison. Melissa, who was the love of his life, stayed with him through it all. She even found a way to marry him while he was in prison. Together, they discovered joy again as they found forgiveness in their hearts for the young man who killed their son. Suicide by overdose is a serious issue in this country. Multiple people that Jody loved died this way, including 6 soldiers he served in combat with. It drove him to alcohol, which led to a lot of brokenness. Jody thought he was functioning because he was financially providing for his family, but really, he said everything was a mess. Eventually, he ended up losing it all, but he learned to lean on God and follow the path that was laid out for him. We heard then the amazing testimony of Jocelyn, who died in a car accident when she was in high school. The paramedics were able to revive her, but she spent months in the hospital in a coma. Eventually, she woke up, but she had to relearn who she was. Due to the nature of the accident, Jocelyn was actually given a settlement, but it was too much money for someone so young, and Jocelyn ended up using it for the wrong things. She said a few years later, she found herself using drugs, in a violent relationship, and pregnant. She cried out to the Lord, just begging to be heard. Well, she was, and her story will bring you so much hope. Next came Rafa, who's on the worship team at my church. His story is incredible. Rafa was born and raised in church where he learned the theory of who Jesus was, but he didn't know Jesus personally until much later. He said he was the life of the party, and drinking, drugs, and clubbing was where he found joy. One night he took it too far and overdosed. He cried out to the Lord, begging, please don't let me die. Rafa had hit the lowest point of his life, but said the Lord showed up and saved him. It was an amazing story. Then we were blown away by Mitchell's story. Mitchell got arrested, but because of a strange situation, which I have no doubt was the Lord, he ended up in a jail where he could watch church on a tablet. He became on fire for the Lord, and when it came time for his release, he actually begged to stay in jail one more day. Do you know why? Because his plan was to walk to the church he had been watching, but he knew they were going to be closed by the time he was released. He is such an inspiration, and how Mitchell is living his life today is amazing. We ended the season with Ashley, who was crushed when her boyfriend was killed in a car accident. To dull the pain, she turned to drugs. She said instead of those drugs bringing healing, that choice caused more destruction, which led her to becoming homeless, going to jail, and losing her children. She said she also felt unworthy of love. Now she is being used by the Lord in so many ways to bring hope to the people around her. Season 2 of You Are Loved was packed full of amazing people with amazing stories that remind us to never give up. These people brought us encouragement, advice, and a whole lot of hope. If you haven't seen every episode, go back and watch them now. I promise that you will be blessed. I pray that you know no matter how far you have run from God, it is never too late. There is always hope because you are loved.